To be fair, one thing I'll say, a caveat, I do regret raising so much angel money at such a low valuation at the start. My ego was relinquished like a psychedelic experience when my business failed. So I was like, oh fuck, I'm actually don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if it's public or not, but they just sold a big chunk of equity to a PE fund. Made a wedge. I think TikTok Shop's a scam.
When I
came about my girlfriend or something.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. Oh yeah, turn that around. No free sponsorships here.
Yeah.
Worth too much.
Cool. Welcome back to another episode of DC Diaries. Bit rusty, me and you. It's been a while.
Yeah,
but
it has been. I'm barely on this podcast anymore. It's not even mine anymore.
I know. I went away to Bali for 3 weeks, and Ollie was going to do loads of pods when I was gone and didn't manage one. So
I don't know, it's time to do one pod.
Yeah.
Europe's busiest man.
But today we're joined by Matt Kelly, founder of Spacegoods. Matt, welcome to the show.
Pleasure. I've got man flu, not done a pod in many, many months, but couldn't turn this one down. It's the creme de la creme of e-commerce emerging podcasts.
Clip it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I guess before we jump in, obviously a lot of people listening know who you are. But just give us the quick origin story of Matt
In fact,
Kelly.
on that note, I brought a product because I need to get some founder content. So
The most natural.
What, just at the start of the episode?
Just like throughout the...
The real.
We're not cutting this either. This is all raw.
All raw. Here we go. Now you need to get your scripts in. Like,
I have to shit with scripts.
here we
What was
go.
the question?
Matt Kelly, origin story.
I guess long story short, I always joke that I'm the least wealthy person that's had like 4 different brands and is still swinging in the game of e-commerce. Guess long story short, what do you want the whole story?
Well, just like flash view. We don't need to go too deep because I think you've told your story on so many pods already that.
I guess got into e-com early, had a brand with this guy, dropshipping jeans back in the glory days of Geordie Shore. Ironically, had an office then in 2017, don't have an office now. Did that business, then spent a few years doing the whole nomad thing, Chad scaling dropshipping stores in like 2018, 19. I still think in hindsight that was actually the best way to do things. But then moved to London like 5.5 years ago, more relevantly, launched 2 different brands. One was called Midnight City, like a competitor to Crafted, just this cheap shit, but great margins. Really easy to run that kind of brand back then because it was so low competition. So profitable from day one, no investors, just bootstrapped it. Got to about 4 million a year, 3 or 4 million a year run rate. Profitable, wasn't really passionate about it. So launched a brand called Neon Beach, which ruined my life, which was LED neon signs. Launched it at the end of 19, start of 2020. COVID lockdown happened. Obviously, ecom boomed in 2020. So that brand grew to about $1 million a month in about 4 or 5 months. I thought this is great. Horrible supply chain. Was making it in China, which was actually not the problem. We're making like bespoke stuff and like ready to go stuff on the website, B2B and B2C. £300 AOV, great product, great margin. But the straw that broke the camel's back with that business was too much volume in 2020. So we had like a primetime TV campaign with ITV Love Island, which in hindsight was kind of mad when I was 24. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but just said yes. Brought the production from China to Leeds, which is near where I'm from in York and where these guys are based, to a factory, which I'm not going to name, who basically bit off more than they could chew. I hadn't done my due diligence, paid them loads of money up front. Long story short, the supply chain couldn't handle the demand. Stuff wasn't getting delivered. During Q4 2020, like 3 million quid's worth of orders basically disappeared. You know, chargebacks, Trustpilot reviews, Facebook feedback score, perfect storm. The whole business went from being very profitable to being very insolvent in about 4 months. And I tried to save it by taking on loads of easy debt at the time, like Wayflyer, etc., etc. Full story on this on my first ever episode on the Midnight Pod. Go and watch that for the full details. But yeah, long story short, shit show. Had to put that into a pre-pack administration, which if you don't know is a fucking horrible situation, but it's basically a way to get an investor to buy out your business, give creditors their money back, some of them. Customers got their money back at the expense of my mental health and my equity. Very shit time. Broke up my ex-girlfriend, put on like 3 stone. Rock bottom. There's like a video on my phone, which I've never posted, of me like crying into a camera in like September, October 2021, being like, fuck this. And around that time, the guys that bought that business, who were actually one of my creditors originally, long story again, go watch episode 1, offered me a job and said, come work with us. I said, fuck that, rather jump off a cliff. Around that time, I thought, well, obviously going to do the next thing. What is the next thing? Started microdosing magic mushrooms because I was in a low point. Thought there's something here, but I can't sell magic mushrooms on the internet, at least not for very long, at least not credibly, and scale it and sell a business one day in that niche. But I thought something here, functional ingredients, started reading about lion's mane, saw what was happening in America with like Mudwater, Four Sigmatic, Everyday Dose, all these functional beverage brands. I thought no one's doing it well in the UK and Europe. There's a few Amazon brands and 1 or 2 brands in the UK online, like Dirty, probably the only other one in the UK at the time. And then, thought nice margin profile, wanted to do something consumable, subscription. I'd not done that before, and created Rainbow Dust, which was the first product. The initial idea was kind of alternative to a microdose. In reality, it's a mushroom coffee, but the positioning at the start was an alternative to a microdose. So that's what I launched with. That's kind of why it's pink and purple instead of black, green, brown, like every other brand. I guess we've since grown to about $1 million a month in revenue. We're in retail, D2C, Amazon, largely in the UK, just launched in Germany. I also, probably unlike a lot of kind of D2C bros, went down the venture capital route because I just thought on balance it was a net beneficial decision. So raised from 5 Seasons Ventures, who are a very credible food and bev investor, like a year ago, raised $2.5 million from them. I guess now the ambition, was always been the ambition, but I guess it's a bit more tangibly achievable, I think. It's to build a category leader in the functional beverage space. We kind of started as a mushroom brand. Now we're a coffee plus functional coffee brand because it's our hero SKU. But there's other stuff I'm working on now, and I think really I want to focus on functional morning beverage. So I like powder form, like subscription, online first, European first, but doing a bit of retail, other formats as well. So I've been doing this brand for like 2.5 years. We're now 10 people, give or take, equivalent full-time, and a few agencies, still fully remote. And I'm in that weird stage now where I think it's quite easy to get a brand to like 10 million run rate, or a bit more now. We'll do 10 million this year for the full year. And now it's like, well, how do we get it to 30 and then 50? Because that's the valley of death for most brands, I think, because it's where it has to be professionalized. And I went to a talk with Steve Hewitt from Gymshark the other day, and it was like 20 founders and him, and I thought this will be fluff, but it was actually really fucking good. And he spoke about 10 to 50 being the valley of death. So it's not just me saying that, someone that knows what they're talking about. And now I'm starting that journey, hiring a few more senior people. I guess ultimately the ambition is to build a brand and sell it, right, to someone like a Nestle. That kind of has to be the ambition for me now, because I've taken venture capital, which does change the dynamics of growing a business, which is definitely different, pros and cons to that, which maybe we can get into. But it's a competitive space, lots of copycat brands, which if you're watching, fuck you. But I think we're probably market leader in the UK now. I thought some of our competitors were much bigger than they are. But just winging it really. I've also got a podcast I started, which strangely some people watch. And I guess my whole thing is just documenting the real process of building a brand, because most people are just smoke and mirrors, say how great it is all the time, but actually it's really hard. So that's kind of where we are 2.5 years in, strangely, which for me is actually a PB in terms of how long I've worked on a single brand.
Yeah, I was going to say
previously
that.
It was like a year, 18 months, 2 years, which is probably in hindsight was severe autism and or ADHD.
Yeah. Because it's full circle, because I remember coming on your pod just as you were launching Spacegoods, and you were saying that then, you were kind of like, let's see if this lasts more than 12 months, because most of my friends get bored and move on.
I still have loads of ideas for new brands, but I'm kind of locked in right now, so...
Yeah, nice. Well, fucking hell, yeah. You've just somehow encapsulated a crazy 8 to 10 year journey into a couple of minutes. So well done.
I'm still not rich, which really fucking annoys me. But
so
learn a lot.
Just to kick off, then, I want to start with quoting one of your tweets. Which I thought was quite interesting that you wrote quite recently.
You're much more prepared than I ever was on my podcast. I would come on and say, I don't know who the fuck you are. Tell me your story.
Yeah, but we do, because it's everywhere, and I think we want to go a bit deeper than that today. But I thought this was really, I related to this a lot, but you said, ask most people how they think things are going in their biz, and their default answer is always, yeah, really good, thanks. Don't think I've ever responded that way either, because I'm something and everyone else is a genius, or I'm just painfully hard on myself. So I guess the first question is, how is business going?
Yeah, quite good. I think it's hard. The investors tell me it's going well. I think my circle of comparison is extremely niche in the sense that I'm probably the least successful person I know, which is good and bad. It's terrible for the ego, but it's probably net beneficial for actually achieving things, because I know so many people that are doing good shit in scaling, including you guys, in brands and agencies and so on. But I mean, we're ahead of the budget this year. I think things get harder as you grow. I think a lot of people probably naively think to go to like 0 to 10, you spend money on ads, and then to go to 10 to 30, you just triple the ad spend. But it's not as easy as that, because objectively CAC goes up. I've got man flu, apologies. So trying to figure out, and everything just gets more complicated, because you probably need more SKUs, you probably need more countries, you probably need more people and more channels. And that's why most businesses don't go much beyond. Like, there's a lot of brands in like that 10 million-ish ballpark. There's way less that doing like 20, 30, 50, and even less doing like 100 plus. And I think it is just because it gets harder.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just spend more money on ads, which
Gets
is probably
more-
how most people scale.
Gets exponentially more complex.
Yeah.
Like in terms of every single person you add is like a node in a network, not like a linear relationship. Like I also find it harder to like set expectations of what the next 12 months are going to look like when you start to, because as you say, in that first period, it's like it's quite easy to forecast, like, right, I'm just going to triple my ad spend, and it's from like 0 to 10 million. As long as you can make really good ads, like, your revenue will usually follow. But then when you start having to do brand activations offline, other channels, like, it becomes so much harder to forecast what's going to happen, and how that's going to progress.
Yeah, so I feel like I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing, to be honest, but we've got a rough plan. I think the difference now, I've got investors and stuff, and probably most businesses will have this, but I reckon a surprising amount of businesses probably have no actual plan and or budget. They're just like Chad scale, which is what I used to do. I guess now we've got an actual plan. Like, there's numbers I'm trying to hit each month. There's a hiring plan, etc., etc. And a lot of it feels like, at the start, maybe feels like corporate bullshit when you take on like investors and they try and put that structure in place. But it is also good because I know what we're aiming for. And even if I think I can beat it, at least you know where the business is going, like what we have to do it, rather than just previously I'd just spend more on ads.
It gives
And then
other
hope for
people
the best.
accountability, doesn't it, as well? Up and
Yeah.
down the business, which I think is, because I think that's a big thing when you're a founder, is like you carry all the weight on your shoulders, but even just sharing out some like ownership down that P&L to other people, it's pretty nice. Like,
Yeah, and also now, like, some people have got equity in the business and stuff, and obviously investors do, but I mean team members do as well. And like, we're hiring an MD right now, which is like a really senior hire. I hired an MD before, which a lot of people may or may not know about. Very different situation. I guess now the logic for that is like twofold. Firstly, I'm a creative that doesn't really like running the business, but I'm doing most of the stuff I'm doing is stuff I don't like, just like running the business. And I'd rather bring in someone that enjoys that and is better at that, so I can do the shit I want to do, which is like product and brand broadly, which gets no attention, but ironically is the most important thing anyway. And then also, I suppose, being a solo founder with a now venture-backed business, which is a fucking cunty term, but also true, like, it's quite risky. It's like heavily reliant on me. Like, if I get run over by a bus or just like go to Bali for 2 months, I can't be asked, which isn't going to happen, but could. Then, like, who's running the business? So yeah, we're hiring someone now, which has been an interesting process. And ultimately, yeah, like, if you want to build an exitable business, which I do, it can't be that reliant on you. You've got to bring in like a proper management team, which is probably something that most like Chad scalers don't even think about, because they're just thinking about like the next day. It's like day trading rather than like long-term plan.
Yeah, when you get to that scale, it just shows how much more important that hiring is.
I mean, we're obviously not at that scale now, but it's more like hiring to get to 50 million.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like hiring now.
And bringing in people that have been there, done that. I mean, you look at like Represent, would they have got to where they did if they hadn't brought in a CEO, a seasoned CEO who'd been there, done that previously?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So, interesting phase.
I wanted to chat about one of the areas that you've kind of explored more extensively over the last 12 months in retail, because I think that's another thing that those Chad scalers, as you say, I feel like it's a growing thing in D2C. Like, if you rewind sort of 5 to 6 years, there was barely any D2C brands in retail. It was massively like I think retailers probably saw it as like a bit of a risk to take D2C brands, whereas it now feels like a lot of them are taking huge bets, whether it's like brands like yourself who are multi-channel, or if it's even just brands like Made by Mitchell from like TikTok, who's going into Boots and crushing online and offline sales. How have you found that process to be in terms of like, and how does it compare to maybe like more traditional channels in terms of approach and what it's added to the business?
Yeah, I'd never planned to go into retail. It's not a retail product. Like, it's a 40 quid pouch of powder that's built for D2C subscription, really. So Holland & Barrett came to me and said, we want to stock it. And I was just like, yeah, basically. That's kind of how it happened. It started in like 200 stores. Now it's in, I think, nationwide Holland & Barrett, which is, I think, 750 or something. And then Boots, we're in like 500 stores. So we're in like 1,200 plus stores in the UK. Whole Foods as well, but that's purely like a brand thing. It's like 2 stores. Yeah, the margins are insane in retail. For me, it's like 50% net margin, which is impossible in D2C, at least for me. Obviously, though, take that with a pinch of salt, 'cause it's driven by D2C spend. So now we're kind of, I reckon it's having a negative effect on our like triple world CAC, because some people are definitely buying it in store.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's probably also the opposite effect of it's basically a big billboard. So we're in 750 stores. Might not sound that much, but I don't know what the footfall is per day. Probably like 1,000 people times 750. That's a lot of impressions on the shelf every day.
Especially when you got a product that like really stands out.
Like, it's not built for retail, but
it's working in
ironically,
retail.
It shows up on
like
a shelf so well.
Peacocking. I don't know if that's a real term, but it's like on the top shelf, twice the price of anything else. I mean, I've got all the data. We pay for the sales data, and it's growing. I suppose the hard thing in retail is everyone talks about getting in, but the main thing is rate of sale and selling through and not being kicked out if it's not doing well. Seems to be doing well so far. I'm hiring a retail person now because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. We've got an agency that run it, but I still have to manage the agency. So I'm just like, they're like, what do you want to do with this? I'm like, fucking no, I'm not a retail person, but I'm trying to figure it out. And then we're doing a retail specific SKU as well, which is like a 7-day box thing. But it's very, very different. It's a very slow channel. But I do feel like once you're in and it's working, it's potentially more profitable than D2C.
Predictable as well.
Unpredictable, yeah.
They do get you on those payment terms. I don't know what they've got.
Yeah.
I've heard some
It's
horror
like
stories
net 45 to be fair,
terms.
Holland & Barrett, because we're a new brand. It's not that bad, but it could be worse.
Boots is really
It's
bad.
like 90 days,
Yeah, 90 days, which is
Fucking
ruthless. That whole like offline, that complexity piece comes into retail as well. I've been involved I've seen a US brand that's just done this in a similar space where they've gone into retail and they've gone from like 0 to like over £1 million a month in revenue through retail because it's just taken.
Oh, the US is different as well.
Yeah, the scale's obscene. Like it's hard to even comprehend when you're in the UK. Like the scale of getting into somewhere like
Ghost, who just sold for like $1 billion. You see that?
I saw that.
They used to be. I don't know how big they were, but they weren't that big D2C. Maybe 50 to 100 million. I read, but then they did the energy drink.
Yeah.
I think it was in partnership with the one who bought them in the end. But then it was in like 25,000 stores or something ridiculous, maybe more.
I just remember them ripping through like those gym YouTubers.
Yeah. Christian Guzman. OG.
Yeah, the OGs.
Because I think that's interesting play of like developing the can for retail as well. Like you've developed a specific SKU for retail.
Yeah, we also looked at doing an RTD, so ready to drink can this. I'm still potentially going to do that. The margins are horrifying, which is why most brands that look great in like naming no names is a big UK brand that everyone probably thinks is printing, but their P&L is disgusting because they're in retail. Not that that's not valuable to the right buyer, but it is a different business model if you're just in retail.
And cans as well, like with
I do have a vision of a stubby Diet Coke shaped 330ml can that's pink and purple like this.
Yeah,
I do have a vision. We are still working on one, but
I think it can
haven't
work.
pulled the trigger yet.
It's just cans are just so hard to do D2C.
It's a big scale distribution thing. Yeah, you can't do D2C.
Pretty much
maybe
impossible.
work on Amazon.
Yeah,
but it'd be retail first.
Yeah,
in wholesale.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, just rounding that all off, I'd love to just know what maybe was some of the biggest learnings you've had from going into retail so far. I know you mentioned that you've been working with this agency. They're kind of coming to you with these questions. What maybe some of the biggest things you've learned from there that other brand owners might be able to take forward?
To add to that before you answer, have you seen anything that you've done online that's meaningfully upticked retail sales?
Well, I think everything we've done online is the only reason we're in retail for a start, because they saw the brand online. But I also think because we're spending so much on Meta, people know the brand. Yeah. Whereas a lot of brands in like Holland & Barrett, I've never seen them on D2C. They're clearly just a retail brand. And for that reason, I don't know who the fuck they are, really. I suppose learnings. I mean, like one thing is it's all very well being in retail, but you want a good space in retail. So now we're like top shelf with a branded bay, which does cost a lot of money. I actually don't even know how much, but I just said yes. But that makes a big difference to perception than being on the bottom shelf in the back corner of the store.
Yeah,
like not every retail space is equal. And then I suppose it's just a relationship thing. Like this is why we use the agency. To be fair, like let's have relationships with the buyers, but also hearing anecdotally like what's working, what's not working, what are customers moaning about. What do they see as an opportunity? You almost want to partner with the retailer and say, we want to grow this category with you.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I'm trying to do. We're saying, well, no one's leading the functional coffee thing. We've got all this traction on D2C. Let's do a 7-day box. And now I'm speaking to Tesco, quite interested in it. They were like, I don't think they understood how potentially big it was before. They're like, it's a bit niche. Then you showed them your D2C sales. And like, It's not that niche.
It's like de-risks it for them, doesn't it? I feel like that's what buyers in retail are. Like, you sell into an individual, you sell into their reputation in a way.
Yeah.
If you're working with, and that's probably why agencies help, because they've got that relationship with the buyers, and they're almost putting their name on the line with them as well, and their relationship on the line.
Have you been conscious about the, you know, what retailers you're looking at? Because I know even when we spoke, before you'd ever gone into retail, you mentioned that you would only really focus on some of the more premium retailers for certain reasons.
I don't know what I was talking about. Well, I guess Holland About's like an interesting one because it's like niche, but also pretty big in the UK.
Yeah.
It's not like a Tesco or Sainsbury's like grocery, but it's also not super niche like fucking Selfridges, which everyone bangs on about getting into, but it's like £200 a year retail value. So yeah, to be honest, I just was keen to get it into retail. And then once you're in one, like we were in Holland About first, then Boots, then Whole Foods. Now we're speaking to Superdrug, Tesco, a few of the others. I think it's like anything, like social proof and credibility. If you can prove out the sales and it's working, then other people want to jump on it. I probably wouldn't be that precious about it now, to be honest. It's more just, I don't think we're really like a super premium brand. Yes, it's not cheap, but ultimately I just want to sell shit at scale.
Yeah.
Are they having? Have you had any issues with them bidding on search or anything like that?
Yeah, a few things like that. And like, for example, I didn't really think about the fact that it's more expensive on the website because our subscription offer is $39 on the website, whereas we agreed to sell it for $39 into retail because $49 is just too expensive. And no one buys it at $49 anyway on the website, really, because it's mainly subscription. So there's probably a bit of that you need to figure out. Like Amazon was $39.99, whereas in retail it was $39 flat, or the other way around, which is like a bit confusing. So little things like that. But yeah, and then I guess other things like if you're late with deliveries, it can kind of fuck you, and you can get fees and shit, which we've had a few issues with before. But yeah, it's just a whole new thing, whole new channel, and very different, just very slow.
Yeah.
But once you're in, it can cook pretty quick. And then the thing with the revenue as well, like we did like 300K in retail revenue in like purchase order value in like July, I think it was. And the next month was like nothing. The next month was like 300K again, because obviously they're buying in to pipeline fill stores. So it's never going to be like daily revenue in the same way D2C is. It's more hit and miss, up and down.
Makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. I'd love to like hear your view on community, because I know this is something you've been doing, putting a bit more of an emphasis on at the moment. I mean, we were in the Pure Sport offices recently, and it's crazy the scale they've got to, almost done it the reverse. Like they've built the community first, the run clubs, and now they're really starting to put an emphasis on you know, paid search, paid social. But I would love to dig a bit deeper into that. Like, what's your current approach to building community and the importance it will be on the brand?
To be honest, it's not something I thought about really for the last like 2 years. I was just like heavy direct response, and like someone called me out to it the other day. You might have seen it, went semi-viral, saying our brand's like way too direct response, like spammy, and I like ratioed it massively.
Yeah,
and then we DM'd a bit anyway, so it wasn't that deep. But I suppose my focus was just sell fucking product. And maybe a bit naively, I thought the community will just come as a result. And I think it definitely does to some extent. Like if you go on our Trustpilot, it's like 4,000 reviews, like super passionate people, get loads of UGC selling every day from people that just buy the products. I think the first thing is just selling product to people that fucking like it. That starts the community. So I'd probably view it the opposite way to Pure Sport, because, I'm not going to call them out, but like I think people think they're bigger than they are. And like, yes, they've got a great community, but are they selling shit at scale, and can they scale that to like 30 million? I would question it. I think as in that strategy, I think it definitely has a ceiling. If you put paid in as well, then yes, and that works. But for me, I think paid and scale comes first. Now we're starting to do a bit of like coffee mornings and all this shit, because leaning into like the female wellness era arc for our customers. I'm not really involved in that stuff, to be fair, but yeah, I'm conscious we need to do more of it, because like, when you think of a sick brand, I would think of like Gymshark and Pure Sport, which goes against what I just said about Pure Sport probably not scaling enough. But actually, it's definitely valuable for like, I sound like I'm talking shit about Pure Sport now. Fuck, I didn't mean to say that. But it's just like a different way of doing it. But yeah, I think you need performance marketing and community stuff long term. Like I think the events, the in-person stuff. I was at some VC event the other week, and they're all banging on about community. It's a bit of a buzzword, but if you can do it properly, I think it will definitely increase. It's great for content, probably good for like brand, because people see something real rather than just on a screen the whole time. It's not just direct response, UGC ads. But then also it's probably good for building LTV and just like word of mouth, because people feel connected to the brand. They're actually bought into something. obviously it's probably only ever going to be your like top 10% of customers that go to that stuff in person, but you want to cultivate more of them, more like super fans.
And build the lifestyle around it as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a few considerations there. I think that's true. It's like it builds advocacy in your top cohort of customers, and like they're the people who you can actually like meaningfully move their LTV of. Like I feel like there's a really large subset of consumers that you acquire to a business that's like they just have an inbuilt lifetime value, and you can't really. Yeah, you can send an email. Yeah, you can change your flows a little bit, and it'll move it by like 2 to 3%. But they're not going to like come and buy another product 3 months before they might have. But I think when you start doing that community stuff, you can sort of shift like that top 10, maybe 25% meaningfully. Maybe they'll buy an extra item every year because they come into these events. That can stack up to quite a lot of like business impact. I do think two other things. I think you have to have a brand that it actually like fits for. Like, I feel like we're going to see a wave of people trying to do community over the next couple of years for brands that just feels very unorganic, or in a way that just feels
like a
very
pillowcase
fake.
brand or some shit. Like random.
Yeah, more
Like,
passion driven.
I think there's cool ways to do it. Still, there's probably ways to do it for every brand if you really think about it. But it's where you start just forcing things that it starts to feel like unnatural. And then I still think that most brands who do it don't wrap it back into like their main channels, the main drivers of growth as effectively as they should. Because like you say, like performance marketing is still, even for those brands doing community, unless they've got to that scale, like a Gymshark, where they're like not comparable to a direct consumer brand, like still 60% plus of their new customers come through paid ads.
Yeah, I saw some thread the other day, or maybe like a month ago or something. You might have seen it on Twitter, and it was like Gymshark got to 700 million in revenue with 0 paid ads. I was like, are you fucking retarded?
Yeah.
I think I saw their P&L. They spent hundreds of millions on performance marketing.
Yeah, they do.
People are so naive.
It's like
they think because they've got a brand, it's all just organic.
Yeah.
But obviously, performance is a huge part of it.
It's like wrapping it back into that performance mix. I think is such a big lever, because it is a competitive advantage compared to other people who are.
Yeah, I do think fitness and gym brands is like the easiest thing that it applies to, because everyone can go for a run together. You can go do a gym session. Like even for me, it's kind of like, well, we're not a fitness brand, but there is a subset of like fitnessy people. But then we don't want to alienate people that aren't into the gym. So we're not positioning it as like a gym thing. So we're doing like the coffee morning, which is a bit more general, but it ends up being a bit harder to define, because the brand is quite broad. Like, yes, there's fitness people, but also there's a large section of just people that go to work every day and want to feel better in the office. There's like young mums that are fucking stressed. There's people that are trying to be a creative or an artist or something. It's a bit more broad. So it's harder to define what to do. Like we've done I think we did some mindfulness meditation thing online as well before, which, yeah, it's probably the right sort of thing to do. But I'm also trying to figure out what the fuck the brand actually is, because it's not a fitness brand, but there is a bit of that. I don't want it to be like a super niche, like tree hugging mushroom brand, because I think too many brands do that as well, and it's a bit alienating. But then you don't want to be everything to everyone, because then you end up being everything to no one, or nothing to no one. So yeah, I'm trying to figure that out a bit now.
You did a collaboration with Elite recently as well, didn't you, as part of that?
Yeah, it was a horrible picture of me in like some too small see-through t-shirt going through my fleshy scale phase. That was a workout thing. They are like a gym brand, I guess, a fitness brand.
It's something on my mind into next year, is that partnerships and collaboration. You're going to be doing more of that. Is that something you see as like I guess it's a great awareness play, because it's like cross promotion to another audience. But
yeah, actually, I thought that was pretty fluffy before we did it, but I think it got like 10,000 new email leads or something, which from like emailing their list and us doing the same. So it definitely has value. I think it gives like credibility, a good excuse to host an event and get some influencers along, etc.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah, probably, but I don't know if that stuff like massively moves the needle. But I think if you can try and like, we were definitely the bigger brand out of the two, so I feel like it was more beneficial to them in terms of like email list sharing. But if we got to do a collab with like Gymshark or something, not that they'd ever email their whole list, which is probably 30 million people, but it could be insanely valuable.
Yeah. Just levels.
Yeah, I think people just like seeing it as well. It just kind of puts your brand in a certain category. Like Surreal do stuff with like Wild on LinkedIn, for example. And then you think of Surreal as like almost as big as Wild, even though they're much earlier in their journey. So yeah, I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, it's a great way to like actually, if you there talking about how you're splitting off your personas in a sense, and it's like if you are wanting to expand in certain areas such as that fitness persona, you know where to go, and that's a way to potentially unlock new reach there, which
Yeah.
I think is interesting. I mean, just to like round that off then, because I think everyone's almost got a different view on what community actually is and what it actually means to them. I mean, like, what would you say community actually means to you?
Well, I think it's just like-minded people getting together to talk about life, basically.
And
I've just come up with that. I don't know if that's a good definition.
Are
but
you like pulling that offline somehow? I mean, other than obviously you're doing the in-person stuff, but have you kind of considered building some form of private community somewhere where people can actually
haven't
communicate
done
with
it,
one
to be
another?
fair.
Or
Like, we haven't done like the WhatsApp group, Facebook group thing. Probably should or could. Right now, it's just like online. Obviously, people posting content and all that sort of shit, and like socials. But then the offline stuff's been like coffee mornings, events. I think we're doing 4 events this month, to be fair. I don't know where that's come from, but someone's doing a decent job. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it enough, to be honest. I'm so focused on performance marketing, which is probably bad.
yeah,
But I do think
well, if you've got people that can
even
own
just
that,
like turning the online subscription into a membership. I was thinking about that. Like, how can it be
Yeah,
a
it's so
membership
true.
rather than a subscription? And you probably have to add more value than just changing the name. But is there like, I don't know, an app membership or something?
yeah,
Because the challenge is I don't want to decrease the price as you scale, but you want to increase the value at the same price level. I think that's how you'd increase LTV. So
yeah. I
Trying to
guess,
figure
yeah,
that
because a lot of brands like Athletics Greens obviously did that through the lens of just adding more gifts for gift for purchase.
Yeah.
Brings your CAC down. But if you could do it with like non-product driven elements where it just increases that perceived value of the subscription against the price point, so you CAC
yeah,
goes
like there's
down,
only
yeah.
so many Chinese overpriced accessories people want. They're incredibly good quality. They are from China, but they're incredibly good quality. But there's only so many fucking straws you can add to someone's order because it just is not going to be marginally more valuable to them.
Yeah.
that's so funny.
So
So we discussed briefly about like the VC piece, pros and cons. I mean, you've been on both sides of that in terms of, you know, you've done it with, you've done it without. From now having the benefit of hindsight, what would you say are some of those pros and cons looking back?
yeah, I think firstly, like consumer VC gets a really bad rap on like just in the D2C community. Everyone like almost assumes that if you raise money, you're a fucking retard and the business is shit. But there are plenty of examples of very successful outcomes from venture-backed brands. Like Wild is venture-backed. They're probably going to sell for hundreds of millions to like a Unilever, would be my prediction, within the next 2 or 3 years. My investors, 5 Seasons Ventures. I mean, VC is a very small world. And it's like they all know each other. I knew nothing about VC like a year and a half ago. And I spoke to all of them and realized they all know each other. There's a few that are good, most that are average, and some that are really shit and you shouldn't work with. I mean, like Butternut Box, they're a venture-backed brand, same investors as me. They sold for like 600 million last year to General Atlantic. I guess ultimately, like the high-level thing with VC is it's a smaller slice of a hopefully bigger pie as a founder. A lot of people, I think, are actually too protective over their equity because they don't realize, and this could be like a hot take, but and maybe I'm just based and I'm saying it because that's what I'm doing, but a lot of people think, oh, I own 100%. But if you own 100% of a brand doing 4 million a year with a few hundred grand EBITDA, it's never going to sell for a big multiple. In fact, it probably never even sell. So yes, you can run it profitably and it's a lifestyle business, but if you can get a brand to 30, 50 million plus, you could probably sell it for a revenue multiple to a strategic. And even if you own 20% of that at the end, when all's said and done, which hopefully I'd have way more than that, but hypothetically, like, is that 20% of something really big worth more than running the bedroom brand? That's not to say you can't build a big brand bootstrapped, but there's not that many examples of bootstrap brands that get to say 30, 50 million. There just isn't. Essence Vault's probably one of the best ones in the UK that has done that. So yeah, that's my general view on it. I suppose I also think certain brands and categories are more suitable for venture than others. I don't think a clothing brand is because it's not a hot new category. There's already a lot of established players. There's less strategic acquirers in that space, whereas something like food and bev and supplements and adaptogens is very hot right now. Even 2 years ago when I launched it, it was nothing compared to what it is now. So I think it lends itself to being an investable category more, partly because it's high growth. There's less big brands in the space who are trying to build the category leader. And also there's more acquirers in the space, like a Nestle or a Unilever and all these big strategics, as well as like private equity. There's more interest in that space than, say, a clothing brand, typically. I think pros and cons, obviously pros, more money, advice, access to more people. Cons,
Structure,
you
I
don't
guess,
own
as
that.
well.
But yeah,
like-
structure. Like, I mean, to be honest, I just thought, if anything, I've not done it before, so I can learn about the process of raising money and being
yeah.
like, yes, you own less equity, but I'm still more than 50% more, and vast majority owner. It's still my business at the end of the day. Like, people think you get investors, you can't do anything. Like,
How-
it's very light red tape at this stage.
How involved? How does that relationship look between you and the VC? Like, how do they get involved on is it monthly? Is it basically when you need them? Like,
I mean, I'm in a WhatsApp group with them. Like, I'm
yeah,
pretty friendly with them. There's a monthly finance call, which probably any business would have anyway, to review the numbers, and then there's a quarterly board meeting, which is like a 3-hour meeting in person. So it's pretty light. It's not like that intense. I think if things were going really badly, it might be more involved, but for now it's not. And ultimately, like, they're on my side. Like, they want to make money, so do I.
Yeah.
I do think it depends on the investor you get, because I think the bigger risk with VCs is, and this is like, I think I was quite naive on before, and people always like, oh, what's the valuation, what, like, et cetera, et cetera. If you raise money at cheaper valuation, like a lot of brands in 2021, you're basically fucked unless you hit plan A.
yeah.
So like, and it also depends what plan A is. So like, some investors want a unicorn. They won't touch you unless they think you can be the next Huel or beyond.
Y Combinator.
That might sound great, but if you could get a good outcome, say 100 million exit is a good outcome, and it's a great outcome for most founders. To the wrong investor, they would block that if it's not $1 billion outcome, and then you're fucked. So you need to be on the same page about what is a good outcome. And for me, it's probably get it to 50 million in revenue and sell it for low 9 figures in a good market. That's a great outcome for me. The investors think that's a good outcome. Yes, it's nice to say, oh, I'm trying to build £1 billion brand, but it's probably not £1 billion brand, realistically. And I don't think that's like not ambitious. It's just pragmatic and not head in the clouds. And then 2021 was a great example. Like, brands like Allbirds raised loads of money, went public. And the thing people don't understand about VC is when VC investors come in, this is what's fundamentally different to angel investors. Angel investors, they buy a bit of equity. There's basically no terms. Yeah. If the business goes to shit, they lose their money. But at the same time, they come in at a lower valuation. If the business goes great, they can make 20, 30, 50, even 100x potentially. VCs will come in at higher valuation, but as a result, they'll have a preference stack. So basically, and the typical is a 1x pref. So, which means in practical terms, we raised 2.5 million with a 1x pref. Means if the business was to go to shit and have to sell for 2.5 million as like a shitty exit, they would get the money back. No one else gets anything.
It's like a bank.
Exactly. So that's how VCs can afford to put in much more money than angels at much bigger valuations. On the grounds, obviously, they come in at X valuation, they probably want to get a 3, 5, 10x, depending on when they come in. If it's seed, probably higher. If it's Series A, lower, etc. But the risk is obviously lower the bigger the business is, which is why valuations are higher and lower, etc. So yeah, you just want to be aware of that, because if you say I raised money at 100 million valuation in 2021 as a seed stage business, which a lot of businesses did. Now they're raising money on a down round at 20 million valuation, back to earth, because they didn't grow and the market's come back to normality. The founder's equity is probably worthless now.
They're working for free.
Yeah,
because
there's loads of people.
That's what people understand. It's a zombie business, because they have a massive pref stack. Say they raised 20 million at 100 million. The business is now only worth 20 million, even if they sold it. The founders still might have 50% equity, but it's worth nothing because the VCs get their 20 million back first.
And restructuring that cap table at that point.
So you actually don't want to raise at too silly a valuation, because then that stings you as well. But you definitely don't want to raise at a 2021 valuation.
Yeah.
So, and it's just, I honestly didn't even know much about this when I went into the process of raising money. I kind of learned it after I'd done the deal, and thankfully the deal wasn't too predatory. So yeah, just go in with your eyes wide open, because, and I guess the other benefit in some ways, if you raise from a decent VC, they're usually £100 million plus fund, and they'll want to put in more money, which is already happening to me, and there's pros and cons to that as well. But it saves you from having to go to market and go through the whole fundraising process, which it's a lot harder to raise money when you haven't raised money from VCs. Once you've got a good VC on board, all the other VCs want to put money in, which has happened to me in the past year. They're all reaching out. Oh, we'd love to chat. We'd love to chat, which wasn't the case a year ago, because you're a nobody.
Yeah,
I think I do think like that kind of early, that 2019, 2020, 2021, where VCs were throwing money at consumer, like a lot of that was like just I think the like understanding of what like a good consumer business looks like and how to run a good consumer brand is
Yeah, I think people
fundamentally
just
changed
forgot
as
about
well.
unit economics.
Yeah, like it was
all
all
just
run
chasing
revenue
revenue.
growth on like a CAC to LTV model that they think then once we get to scale, we're just going to right that ship and we're just going
Yeah.
to be profitable. Which I just think that like dream or like idea has kind of died a death now, and I feel like certainly from what I'm seeing, like there's more VC funding flowing into consumer now versus
Yeah.
like 2 years ago, and I feel like it's done on a different like pretense of like what the plan looks like and how to grow those brands.
Yeah, I think it's just like being logical. Like realistically, how big can this be?
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, how much money do we need to raise? How much dilution does that mean? Is the valuation sensible? Then it means there's actually a decent chance of a good return for everyone.
It's also just about like knowing what you want. Like there's no necessarily right or wrong. Like you say, there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. There's nothing wrong with wanting to exit for a certain valuation. I think it's like you need to introspectively very much know what you actually want, not what will look fucking cool on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought there's probably more to learn by raising venture than not. And like I said, I thought the timing and the category and the opportunity to be a category leader and like clear investor interest in a growing category made sense. But if you're running, like I said, a small clothing brand and you have no interest in growing it that much, then it doesn't make sense to raise. I wouldn't even raise from angels necessarily in that case.
Structure is probably quite nice as well because, like, I'm neurodivergent as well,
I'm very much on the spectrum. Spectrum scalers. I should rename this pod
like
Spectrum
structure
Scalers.
is helps me in many ways doing what I do. I mean,
Yeah.
do you think it's created any limitations for you in doing what you've wanted to
Well,
do?
it's stopped me getting distracted and starting a new brand.
Yeah.
Because in my founder's agreement, I can't start a new brand unless it's outside Monday to Friday. And obviously I wouldn't do that anyway, but like it does kind of lock you in a bit, which I need because I'm not going to get where I want to get to doing a brand for 2 years. It needs to be probably 5 to 7 years in reality. That's like a realistic timeline.
It always takes longer than you think.
And also,
Everything.
I think I do probably better under pressure. Like some of my mates invested. I mean, to be fair, one thing I'll say, a caveat, I do regret raising so much angel money at such a low valuation at the start. That was a lesson. I think I gave away too much equity. And a lot of those angels will hopefully do very well, which next time maybe I do another business, and there's swings and roundabouts to it, but including this guy, provided nothing goes terribly wrong. But I just think I was a bit naive. But I was coming off the back of a failed business, so whatever. It was more just like I can look at it now and say, raised him. Didn't need that much money to launch it, basically. And also probably should have raised at a higher valuation. But at the time, whatever.
You're coming from a fairly difficult position.
With the context and information you have at the time, so whatever.
Just from our context in terms of like VC, is like we've been having discussions around like I've been speaking to some like people who have gone through the agency like acquisition and sale process, which were a distance off, like it's not on the horizon, but that idea of getting, like they always say, grey hair around the table is like something that's underappreciated.
Yeah.
Just people who've been there.
We just appointed a grey hair to our board.
Yeah, it's like, and it's quite a funny term because we've recently hired a CFO who's got no hair, and I was making a joke about grey hair, and he was like,
Daddy coin.
He's a level beyond.
But it is true. Like you just don't know what you don't know, and like someone who's trodden the path is just, like a lot of our like biggest growth points in our agency journey has been like we've been fortunate enough to have conversations with people who have been through the process, and they've like given us guidance that's allowed us to get ahead of the problem.
Yeah.
And then the exact opposite has happened at the points where we've like gone off course or we've had a few bad months, is we haven't been fortunate to get that advice at the right time. And it's
I also think a lot of founders, especially with the whole like money Twitter sphere, because a lot of founders have made a bit of money in their early 20s and lifestyle business and all that, and I was one of them a few years ago. I think they just genuinely think they know all. It's not everyone, but there's a lot of cases I can think of, and they think like, what does this old guy know? But like, we just appointed a guy called James Davidson, founder of Tails.com. Nice. It's a 9-figure business, sold to Nestle in 2018. He made a wedge. And I got put in touch with him from the investors. So there probably wouldn't have been the credibility had I not had that relationship. And now he's invested a bit of money, and I work with him one day a month. And so much he's seen and done, especially in that next phase, like 10 to 50, which I just don't know. And it comes back to the point I made earlier. I think a lot of founders think, I'll just spend more on ads. But then I see so many brands, including my own mates, that have got stuck at a certain point, and I haven't said it to them. And if they watch this, maybe they're reading between the lines. But I do think like you would do so much better if you just held your hands up and got some advice on board. And it's because
Yeah.
they own the whole thing. They don't have any advisors.
Do you think it's an ego thing?
Yeah, I do, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
My ego was relinquished like a psychedelic experience when my business failed. Because I was like, oh, fuck, I'm actually don't know what I'm doing. But since then, I've been a much better founder because I'm willing to learn from people. Like, even if in any realm, like if they're an expert at something, I feel like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, which is, I think, it's the best mindset to actually get better rather than thinking you know it all when you're actually shit.
Yeah, it's like just learning from someone else's failed experience or learned experience. Like I'm doing it at the moment where Jack is a very performance marketing driven group. Like I'm happy, like, but I know, well, we're in that sort of for some of the brands in that the phase you mentioned of growth, and it's like spending time around people who have done like brand campaigns, like upper funnel activations that's lifted the ceiling on, like, we can't just continue to spend money on paid ads to get Tev to where we want to go in 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, I
like
agree.
it's just not going to happen. But I'm not, like, we're really good at performance. We're really good at like CRM as an agency, and that's what we're really good in that business at. So, but like trying to learn about brand, it's interesting because there's actually loads of people are very willing to share as well if you reach out to them most of the time.
Yeah.
Like there's platforms like Mentor Pass as well that are really valuable just to strike up conversations, but people just don't do it enough.
Yeah, I think that's it's same principle with hiring. Like, bring people in that are further ahead in another business that we can learn from in ours. Like, that's one of the biggest ways we've been able to get ahead in the agencies. It's like, okay, what are some of our biggest competitors? What are they doing that's different to us? Because all about kind of progression through the company, but at the same time, to get to that next level of growth, you do need to start bringing in people.
Yeah, I've been so shit at hiring historically, whereas now I'm spending almost 50% of my time on hiring, at least like this month, because we're hiring loads of people. But I think that's the thing that raising venture as well has forced me to do, and I knew it would force me to do it, so I kind of that's part of the reason I did it. I think when you're like a lifestyle business, by default, you're smaller, you don't want to spend on people, you're probably going to do pretty much all the main needle moving stuff yourself. And I've still got mates that like running their own ads and stuff, and that's fine, but I just don't want to run that type of business. I'd rather hire better people. Like, we hired a head of growth. I'm currently hiring an MD, and some people say, oh, why are you hiring an MD? The business is too small. But yeah, I'm trying to build a £50 million business, not a £10 million one. So I'm hiring ahead.
It's hard to do that as well. Hard to have that mentality of like, I'm going to commit to this like 200K salary to unlock that future growth. It's just like it's a mindset. I think it's a mindset shift when you come from, like, we've gone through that. It's like you come from this bootstrap business.
We don't want to spend money on people.
You almost have to shift your mindset of being like, I'm going to commit to this and it's going to unlock the next stage of growth, rather than hiring like retroactively to meet
and even this year,
even if it's
I've been way too slow with it
in the short term.
Like, we just hired a retention manager full time, and I should have hired one 9 months ago after we did that fundraise, probably.
That's always the funny thing as well. As soon as you do it, you're like, why have I waited?
Because in our model,
like
a small move in retention is more meaningful to the bottom line than a big move in CAC. But everyone talks about CAC. No one talks about retention because it's not sexy. What's sexy is spending more on Meta instead of retaining fucking people, retaining subscribers, etc. So,
Steve, the hiring's also interesting. Like, you listen to a lot of the bigger people. Like, we went to Stephen Bartlett talk, and he spends all his time hiring.
Yeah,
like,
he still says he won't let anyone else have that final say on hiring.
I watched a Brian Chesky video. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter.
I love Brian Chesky.
It was a 45-minute talk on founder mode hiring, and I took like autistic levels of notes. I'm an Apple Notes guy. I don't use Notion and this bullshit. And it just made me think it was so true. And that's a multi-billionaire that's got like, I don't know, fucking 10,000 employees or something. And I think he said up to like the 1,000th employee, he still interviewed every single one. And I was like, oh wow, okay. I'm definitely getting too big for my boots, thinking my head of growth can hire all these people. So I'm getting involved now again. Because I do think it's a skill, just interviewing and hiring people. But both ways, like interviewing them, but also probably for the more senior people, it's me pitching the vision to them as well.
Yeah.
So I've spoke to like 25, we're using this expensive headhunter who are really good. Founders Keepers, little plug. Hopefully I get a discount next time. And I spoke to like 25 people. We're down to a short list of 5 people now. And I was amazed how many people that were super credible were even remotely interested in working with/for me. I was like, I'm just some fucking autistic scaler. Like, why are they into it? But people buy into the story.
Yeah.
And what I've become, I think, accidentally quite good at is like, I'm very open, so I'll tell them about my previous failures. I'll tell them where I want to go with this, and like people get excited by that because most businesses are just
I think
quite boring.
I did a podcast last week, and I've been doing huge amounts of research into like founder strategies recently in terms of like founder-based content, organic, paid, etc. And one thing that I think is your biggest strength is your vulnerability as a founder, and how I don't think there's another D2C founder on Twitter that is as open and honest as you have been in some of the things that you're talking about. And I think it really comes through almost the self-doubt that you have. But I think everyone has that self-doubt, but no one actually talks about it.
Yeah, I've dug a hole now. There's so much on the internet, so it's like, fuck it. I could never sell a profitable course because I can't go back to selling the dream. Yeah, I suppose that was just my style with the YouTube, and then I kind of just always like Chad tweeted. I've never had like a Twitter strategy. I just tweet random shit.
That's what probably got.
I should probably lean into it more, to be fair.
Authenticity, isn't it?
I don't think I'm doing enough founder content for the brand. And this is the debate I have with my own YouTube, which I've said a few times recently. It's like, it's attracted a lot of competition, but it's probably to the point now where it's like, well, fuck it, we're balls deep. I may as well just lean into it even more. And like some of our best ads, I think the Hamby one we did like a year ago.
Exactly.
I think that's still our best ad in terms of all time spent.
And I was about to say, like, the reason
and
why...
I got ripped in the comments, but still worth it.
Well, the reason why that founder ad did so well was because, one, we're stripping back and it's very authentic, and it talks about... It really goes deep into the why and the problem as to why you've built a solution for that problem. And what we use, like, very authentic, evergreen content that overlays that kind of character arc in a way. So like linking your story and the problems you were facing to the solution of the product, like people really buy into that. And I think you should lean into that more.
Probably. I've probably been scared to do it because it's like, I'm not this pretty 22-year-old girl. I have a face for radio, in my opinion. And also like kind of leaning towards being like a feminine audience. So it's like, do they want to see some guy? But I guess I can put a nice pink shirt on and kind of appeal to both genders. But yeah, I should probably lean into it more, basically, because even like Represent's a great example. Like obviously the brand isn't about them, and I don't know if it's public or not, but they just sold a big chunk of equity to a PE fund. Made a wedge. I know the numbers on that. I could say that offline. I don't know if that's public knowledge. I'm about to bleep that out. But I know for a fact it happened.
It's on company's house.
It's on company's house, okay. But I know the details of it. I'll show you after. But that's not... The brand's not them, which is why they've been able to sell equity, and it'll probably go on without them. But it's very much, you know who the founder is, and it definitely helps.
Yeah. We'll separate, like George separating from that.
Same with like Gymshark. Like, in fact, there's probably not many brands where the founder isn't public these days.
But yeah, well,
I think you struggle. You'd really struggle if it's not a founder-led brand today.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
I think like a lot of those bigger brands, like if you look at like Ben from Gymshark, like he'll have a team that's building a marketing strategy around him as an individual, and
which is why he's way too squeaky clean on podcasts.
Which I think, it's 100%. It'll be intentional. Like it will look like it's just him, but there'll be like 4, 5, 6 people in the background who are like, he is a marketing force. Whether it and not maybe not directly for revenue, but even for hiring, bringing the right people into the business, getting the right opportunities with certain investors, or like, well, the public, so maybe not, but like everything that's not just sales driving, like the benefits that brings brand. That's the same with George. Like the opportunities for like.
Because he is the archetype of his customers.
Well, exactly.
Like the
so
successful
what it does,
young guy that works
it's the
hard.
archetype, and it's building the lifestyle around them, and it's like, this is the lifestyle to thrive to be. And that's why like they both lean into like longer form content as well, like on YouTube. Like I know Ben
even like fucking Elon Musk. Like he's got a massive personal brand.
Yeah,
huge,
the biggest.
Probably moves the stock price.
He moved the election in America by like moving to Philadelphia, donating $1 million quid a day, and setting up to swing a state in an election. Like influence is ridiculous.
All because he didn't get invited.
For multiple reasons. But I think the whole founder angle. I think it's just such a powerful thing, and it comes like. Powerful for revenue, and then also powerful for hiring, like you said. Like those
interviewed a guy yesterday in one of the final stage interviews, and he said part of the reason he was interested is because he watched my entire Documenting the Journey series. I thought it's kind of weird, but secondly, I was like, fuck.
Probably knows your
Did I
business
say-
better than
You know,
you do.
you know one of our creative strategists that works at Hamby, the reason they work at Hamby Media was because we were working with Spacegoods. They saw one of the Spacegoods ads, saw that we were working together, and then that's how he found us as an agency.
Yeah.
So
The thing with those senior people as well is they've usually got 3 to 4 options.
Oh, yeah.
And like you really do have to sell
You have to
them.
pitch to them as much as they pitch
big
to you.
time.
That's what good, like the really good people want. Like they need to know that it's the right position for them to in the right place for them to like grow as individuals.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a big separator for you winning great talent in comparison to other people who are just a bit like stiff in that process or very bureaucratic.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really interesting.
yeah. And you've recently to segue on. It's not really a segue, but you funnily because look when I came
about my girlfriend or something.
yeah, I knew it was coming. Well, no, the reason I'm bringing this up was because we spoke about this, you know, in terms of you being single as a founder when this was a couple of years ago now.
Sorry to break it to all the ladies, I'm not single anymore.
But
We have
talk to me
99
about that and that transition of you know, running a brand at the scale you are now in a
Small
relationship. How has that kind of affected the way that you work for better, for worse? Obviously, you're not going to go too much into if it is for worse, but I'd be interested to tap into that because obviously Ollie and we're both in relationships, and I think we've spoken before about is how it actually helps ground us in many ways and actually allows us to do better work because we almost have more balance.
I do think fundamentally you don't have to be chasing girls. So I should spend a good portion of my time reviewing options. Instagram, Hinge, Riot, all the usual suspects. Yeah, I think it's net beneficial to have a girlfriend as a founder.
Yeah, I agree.
If they understand and let you just like lock in. You don't want to be like, come watch Love Island with me. Fuck that. So yeah, she's pretty entrepreneurial. She has her own business. And she does content for me now as well. So she's on like the brand Instagram.
Does some content
which
for
is
us.
a natural at. Oh, is she?
Liquid
Oh,
London,
for Tep, yeah. And Liquid, right?
Yeah.
I think I was in that ad. My
You
fucking
were.
hand.
So you're now a model as well.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. I agree with that. So I just see this like fucking money Twitter. It's like, we won't have a
Everyone on
relationship
money
till I'm in
Twitter
my mid-30s.
is so red pills.
and-
So red pilled. They're just like,
But it's so true.
who hurt you, bruv?
Everyone's worried about that, but then you actually realise it grounds you. You don't have distractions and you're content, and also gives you balance, which I think is important for me because when my girlfriend goes away, I'm just like work. And I'm like, fucking hell, if I didn't have a girlfriend, I'd run myself into the fucking floor.
You'd be in a Balinese massage parlour every night. That's where you'd be.
Funny.
Yeah, I think it's just easier, isn't it? It's
balance, isn't it?
You're not
Like,
spending time
don't wanna
focusing on
just-
girls, and also if they support what you're doing, it's just good.
Yeah, you know that
So-
quote: "Behind every great man is an even greater woman."
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, an Eastern European woman. I'm a big pro of Eastern Europeans. My girlfriend's Polish.
Twitter
Just loves it.
Twitter is everyone mentions money Twitter. I just think it's such a
It's the literal definition of smoke and mirrors.
it's just such a small bubble that everyone thinks is so like big because they spend.
There's
so
like
much time on
18-year-olds
it.
worth $500 million. It's like, come on.
crypto
I
side's
hate
even
it.
worse.
I had to have
Yeah.
a big break from it for a while.
I don't use it really, other than it's great for lead generation. But
Oh, I bet.
it's
The
not.
organic
You do
reach on
get
Twitter
some
is
naughty
crazy.
threads on there sometimes.
Yeah, you
like,
do. Sean Puri's dropping
Yeah.
like
He's great.
it's huge threads, but yeah. What does the rest of what's Black Friday? What does Christmas? What's strategy look like? I
Good
guess
question.
your like Q4 is Q1 with
Yeah,
it being
pretty
wellness and supplements. But yeah, what's the next
Yeah,
few
Black
months look
Friday
like?
is definitely different when you're a subscription brand because you don't want people to churn by discounting the fuck out of stuff. So we're like not discounting, we're just increasing value and doing a different offer for subscribers. And it will be like a decent period, but it won't be the massive day compared to other days that a lot of like fashion brands say have when they're clearing out stock. So it's a different strategy.
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? I saw someone actually, I think it was Nick Sharma, mention a strategy where like you can just, if you're going to run a Black Friday offer, just like automatically upgrade people's subscriptions to the offer if you want to avoid churn. If you really want to go hard on CAC, which I
Yeah.
guess is quite clever, but you're also losing. Depends if that's worth it based on how many people you think would actually churn and just buy at the low price point. I thought that was interesting. An interesting strategy, and you can just upgrade anyone who's like in the month who buys, so you don't annoy people. But it's definitely a balance. I always feel like giving more away as freebies and stuff is a better route for for
Yeah,
supplement through
that's
the
what we're doing
period.
pretty much. And then like bigger bundles and shit. Did way too much last year, overcomplicated it. Let's try and keep it simple. And then January's the fat one. So
Yeah, yes, it is in wellness. And you got much planned for Jan?
just scale.
You got
Just scale.
when do your next lot of SKUs hit? Obviously, you've done loads of flavor iteration. That moved the needle a lot, didn't it, as well? Like flavor iterations,
Yeah, I mean,
bringing out more products.
we're known for Rainbow Dust. We've got the nighttime products and the gummies. They do well in retail, but we don't use them as acquisition product at all. So yeah, I've got a few new SKUs coming, entirely new things next year. Might retire the nighttime products and the gummies because I don't think it fits the narrative of functional morning beverage. Like I said, I do think we need to find like another big product to really scale. I think it's hard to. I think I naively thought we could just do the Athletic Greens thing and just scale with one SKU, but they've been around like 15 years.
Yeah,
And they own that market.
yeah.
So yeah, just trying to pretty much double next year is
No
the
mean
plan.
feat.
Yeah.
And just to finish up then, like the future of e-commerce, like what are some of your predictions for maybe the next like 12, 24 months?
Good question. Jeez, it speaks to me like my thought leader of some sort. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Predictions. I think TikTok Shop's a scam. I think it's shiny object syndrome. I just don't buy that it's like the future of e-commerce. I just think it's a race to the bottom. I could be wrong, but it just feels to me like Chinese like telemarketing on. I don't know. It gives me gives me the ick.
Some of the lives where they're like just repeatedly.
I just don't see how it's great for
product.
brands. It feels to me like flash in the pan, cheap brands. At least that's my view. I could be very wrong. At least for me. Other predictions. I think brands partnering with like influencers earlier on, giving them equity. I think that's pretty smart. Maybe less so like Gen Flow, spray and pray, but more like, I don't know, like what if you partner with like a massive A-list influencer from day one, gave them like 20% equity. I think that's a pretty good strategy to launch brands.
You're doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another episode in itself, so we won't go into too much detail.
Yeah,
But you're doing
I'm
that.
literally just launching in January.
What
Yeah.
brand?
It's called Club Mirror. It's an
Fust.
ADHD brand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That
but
won't,
yeah,
that won't fly on
like a
Meta
big
ads. You
we've
can't
got-
talk about ADHD.
No, I know.
We've been in trouble so many
it's,
times.
we've built the community already. So
Is it a physical product?
Yes. So we're starting at. I mean, it's not my show, is it? But my episode. But yeah, no. It's we've already built like a massive community of over 100,000.
I've seen that page. I thought they were fake followers. They're real.
No, all real, yeah. And then we brought on an influencer, and we thought, which way could we get into market first as a holistic neurodivergent brand, with products that support people that are neurodivergent.
What's the first product?
And because of what we know happened with Spacegoods and ADHD, it could not be supplementation. So ADHD apparel was the first. And I know we spoke about how difficult that is, but there's no one that dominates that space. There's a brand in the States that's doing it for female autism. Not autism, anxiety, and it's absolutely booting off.
Yeah.
And it's drop model.
ADHD is a massive segment of our customers, but it's the one you can't really talk about.
It's huge space.
All our
right
best
now.
reviews are like ADHD.
400% increase in
neurodiversity.
diagnosis in the last
think-
2-3 years. It's like a one chart business.
Yeah.
I think one area of creative that you've not explored enough, right, is using like setting up the problem of lower attention spans through the lens of TikTok and short form content, and then using that to position your product as a solution for focus. Like through articles, like you don't have to say ADHD, but you can say ADHD without saying that. But and I think that's like, and you can see, like you say, the graphs, Google Trends, like a lot of it is self-diagnosis, and a lot of it I don't think is full ADHD. It's people who
Just
are just
being
spending
distracted,
so much time on these.
Well, we've got the audience now, so
Yeah.
we'll have to chat about a collab down the line, because we just brought on this big female ADHD influencer, giving her some equity, so she's going to be the face of it. But
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good
that's
idea.
what I think you need to just get into where the neurodivergent communities are and just be the front runner of them offline, whether that be because there's ADHD female communities where hundreds of people meet up. There's so many online ones, even Reddit forums. I think they're the places you just want to dominate almost organically.
Yeah, it's very true.
Cool. Well, yeah. Should we finish up there? Where can people find you if they if they wanted to come and ask a question.
At Mathusius, which is my fucking username. People used to think my second name was Husius. So it's Matthhucius. It's a play on Confucius, which is an ancient Chinese philosopher, don't ask. And then that is my username across everything. Then The Midnight Pod, just Google The Midnight Pod on YouTube, which I kind of still do. Maybe I should lean into it a bit more. But yeah, I'm on like Instagram, Twitter mainly, talking shit.
Nice. We'll put the links below. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool. See you on the next episode.